All right, guys, in this video, Trump goes viral for civics lesson to reporters about Elon Musk. Let's go ahead and get into the video.
The White House briefing, Stephen Miller just taking a question now.
From the media to deport as many illegal aliens as humanly possible. So thank you. And I will promise you that the full might of the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Justice, the Department of Defense, and every element and instrument of national power will be used to remove with speed all criminal illegals from the soil of the United States of America, to enforce final removal orders, and to ensure that this country is for American citizens and those who legally belong in this country. We inherited an ICE that was completely
Now, guys,
shuttered. We inherited a Department of Homeland Security.
Now, guys, you notice that he is only talking about Hispanics. There are Haitians, Africans, Asians, many Europeans that are here illegally who break the law each and every day. But it's only the Hispanics. And you guys voted for him, so have at it.
Whose sole mission was to resettle illegal aliens within the United States of America. In 30 days, the president sealed the border shut, declared the cartels to be terrorist organizations, has increased ICE deportations to levels not seen in decades, and we are shortly on the verge of achieving a pace and speed of deportations this country has never before seen. Thank you.
And Mike, there have been reports that there's some underground.
And while they're talking about deportations, nobody's talking about Russia. See, they have all your attention set on the Hispanics. The Hispanics are not the only people here illegally. So I wonder why that is. And the thing is, you're never going to stop the cartel, because we all know that illegal things don't get into the country without America letting them do it. Hey, remember who Oliver North was? Hey, you know what it is.
Opposition to Trump's pick for Undersecretary of Defense and Policy, Elbridge Colby. Have you or anyone from the administration been personally lobbying senators to support Elbridge Colby?
Look, I've worked with Colby in the past. He has the president's full support to be the Undersecretary of Policy, which will be a critical policy arm for Secretary Hegseth going forward that will implement a lot of these policies. And really, that's been to the extent of it. I think there's been a lot of kind of, breathless, back and forth in the press, but we're full speed ahead to get the president's team in place so we can implement his America First policy.
The deepest cuts we've seen so far at the agency responsible for raising revenue for the federal government.
Well, I think our objective is to make sure that the employees that we pay are being productive and effective. And there are many, more than 100,000 people working to collect taxes, and not all of them are fully occupied. And the Treasury Secretary is studying the matter, and it feels like 3,500 is a small number, and probably can get bigger, especially as we improve the IT at the IRS. And so I think that it's absolutely something that is on the table for good reasons. And the point is that don't just talk about the IRS, talk about all of government. That there are so many places. I live in DC, you maybe live in DC, where nobody's going to the buildings. People aren't commuting because nobody's doing their job. We look back and we see that there are all these people doing two jobs while they're getting a government payroll on the payroll. So the point.
Let's think about that. People are not doing their job. People started working from home during COVID. And the thing is, you think the government just hired people and they're just giving them free paychecks? I don't think so. But hey, if you got a federal job, have at it. This is what they're doing to you, so they can line their pockets.
Point is, we're fixing that, and the IRS is a small part of that picture.
So you're saying that everybody who's being let go was doing a bad job?
I'm saying that we're studying every agency and deciding who to let go and why. And we're doing so very rationally with a lot of support from analysis.
Because we're being told by a lot of people who have been let go at other agencies that they were told they were being dismissed because of poor performance, when in some cases, they haven't even had a performance review yet because they've only been on the job a couple of months.
Yeah, I've never seen a person who was laid off for poor performance say that they were performing poorly. Okay.
Carolyn,
Good point. Sure, Caitlin.
I have a question. I'll start with you, Kevin Hassett. Thank you for being here. And then I've got a question.
So I ask you this. If a person had a job only for a couple months, how could you have a poor performance? You haven't been evaluated after a couple months on anybody's job, especially the government. There is a probation period. And so if you guys buy into this rhetoric, hey, that's on you. But hey, they're pulling the wool over your eyes and they're firing people so that they can save money and then give Elon Musk his contracts. The man has gotten $1 billion in contracts in the last week. Pay attention, people. This affects you 99%, especially the ones who voted for Trump.
Question for Mr. Waltz. On these potential checks that you might send out from Doge, is there a concern as you're thinking through this that they could be inflationary?
Oh, absolutely not. Because imagine if we don't spend government money and we give it back to people, then if they spend it all, then you're even. But they're probably going to save a lot of it, in which case you're reducing inflation.
Okay, so
And also, when the government spends a lot, that's what creates inflation. We learned that from Joe Biden. And so if we reduce government spending, then that's reduces inflation. And if you give people money, then they're going to save a bunch of it. And when they save it, then that also reduces demand and reduces inflation.
Okay, so you're not worried about it. And
No,
Mr.
no.
Waltz?
Now they're sitting here telling you that they're giving the money back to the people. But let me let you in on a secret. If you didn't notice, as being sitting in the president's office, you are not supposed to be making money off of other businesses. That's called a conflict of interest, right? But so he's making money. Elon Musk, who is in office, who's in charge of the world, the country, he is making money. So how do you be in charge of the country and you give yourself government contracts? See, but those government contracts come from the people that are getting fired. Keep up.
To follow up on Peter's question, you wrote in an op-ed in the fall of 2023 that, quote, Putin is to blame, certainly like Al-Qaeda was to blame for 9/11.
Mhm.
Do you still feel that way now, or do you share the president's assessment as he says Ukraine is to blame for the start of this war?
Well, it shouldn't surprise you that I share the president's assessment on all kinds of issues. What I wrote as a member of Congress was as a former member of Congress. Look, what I share the president's assessment on is that the war has to end. And what comes with that? What comes with that should be, at some point, elections. What comes with that should be peace. What comes with that is prosperity that we've just offered in this natural resources and economic partnership arrangement, an end to the killing. And European security and security for the world. The president's not only determined to do that in Europe, he's determined to do it in the Middle East. And just a few months ago, we had an administration that had tried for 15 months, week after week, sitting with you here and couldn't get us to a ceasefire, couldn't get our hostages out. Now we're at that point. We're back to the maximum pressure on Iran, and we have just begun, and we will drive towards a ceasefire and all of those other steps. I'm not going to pre-negotiate or get ahead of the sequencing of all of that. It's a very delicate situation, but this is a president of peace, and who here would argue against peace?
Okay, so you do share that assessment. And can I follow up? In 2017, then President Trump, go ahead. Can I just follow?
But how's he a president of peace? Because the same places that he's supposed to protect, he is trying to build, vacation homes and vacation villages and resorts in other people's country. So how's that a president of peace? Seems like to me that, his buddy Putin, you're handing countries over, and pretty soon they're going to get so big, maybe they're going to come after us. Who knows? Pay attention.
Thank you.
You
So,
just had two questions, Caitlin.
Meg, can I
Jordan,
just-
go ahead.
Mr.
I have an important
Hassett.
follow-up.
Jordan,
from my
go ahead.
colleagues.
So,
Go ahead.
Mr. Hassett, you were speaking about tariff revenue, and you also addressed a question about the IRS. President Trump has spoken about replacing income tax with tariff revenue, especially with all this waste, fraud, and abuse that we're seeing cut. Is that a possibility?
Absolutely. And in fact, if you think about the China tariff revenue that we're estimating is coming in from the 10% that we just added, plus the de minimis thing, that it's between 500 billion.
Why are you not investing in tax liens? No, seriously. Why are you not investing into one of the most incredible real estate strategies that's
100 billion and $1 trillion over 10 years is our estimate. And that's something that is outside of the reductions that markets are seeing through the negotiations up on the Hill. And so we expect that the tariff revenue is actually going to make it much easier for Republicans to pass a bill. And that was the president's plan all along.
And I have a question for Stephen Miller about Doge. So you spoke about Doge. You said roughly $50 billion is set to be cut in a year of waste, fraud, and abuse by unelected bureaucrats. We're hearing this ironic narrative from the president's critics and the left-wing media that Elon Musk is an unelected bureaucrat and he's doing all this terrible stuff. Isn't one of Doge's objectives to get rid of the federal bureaucracy, the deep state? And also, who was running the White House when Joe Biden was in office? Because I don't know a single person who believes it was Joe Biden.
You're tempting me to say some very harsh things about some of our media friends. Yes, it is true that many of the people in this room for 4 years failed to cover the fact that Joe Biden was mentally incompetent and was not running the country. It is also true that many people in this room who have used this talking point that Elon is not elected fail to understand how government works. So I'm glad for the opportunity for a brief civics lesson. A president is elected by the whole American people. He's the only official in the entire government that is elected by the entire nation, right? Judges are appointed, members of Congress are elected at the district or state level, just one man. And the Constitution, Article 2, has a clause known as the vesting clause, and it says the executive power shall be vested in a president, singular. The whole will of democracy is imbued into the elected president. That president then appoints staff to then impose that democratic will onto the government. The threat to democracy, indeed the existential threat to democracy, is the unelected bureaucracy of lifetime tenured civil servants who believe they answer to no one, who believe they can do whatever they want without consequence, who believe they can set their own agenda no matter what Americans vote for. So Americans vote for radical FBI reform, and FBI agents say they don't want to change. Or Americans vote for radical reform on our energy policies, but EPA bureaucrats say they don't want to change. Or Americans vote to end DEI, racist DEI policies, and lawyers of the Department of Justice say they don't want to change. What President Trump is doing is he is removing federal bureaucrats who are defying democracy by failing to implement his lawful orders, which are the will of the whole American people. Thank you.